Guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Brownsugar Commentary, and I'm your girl, Kayla. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe for more videos. Okay, so we're just continuing right along with part 2 of my video talking about what makes an album a 10 out of 10, a classic, a good album. So going right along, we're going into probably the most important part of what I think makes an album a 10 out of 10, and that is the number of songs. Okay, I told you this a little bit briefly in my grand predictions video, but we're going to go a little bit further right now. Okay, the number of songs in an album needs to be just enough to where there's not too much songs where the listener is overwhelmed or they feel like, damn, this album is going on forever. Okay, and there's no replay value. But it needs to not also be too short to where you feel underwhelmed and the message that the artist is trying to convey isn't really fully fleshed out. Most great albums have between 10 to 12 songs, but some may have 13, 14, or even 15, but most stay in that 10 to 12 range. Anytime they're on beyond 15 tracks, unless it's a deluxe album or like there's a couple remixes or something on there, it's just not gonna work. Okay, it's usually gonna be way too much. There's probably gonna be a couple of songs that they're gonna end up skipping, which means that the songs that I'm probably skipping, they could have did without. Okay, like, and they could have just bumped it down to 12 or 10 songs. Okay. But part of the reason why I wasn't into Tiana Taylor's album this year was because it was just entirely too long. Not to say that the album wasn't good or I didn't like it. It's just part of the reason why I'm probably just not going to go back to it, or I haven't really gone back to it since it came out, is because it's just entirely too long. There's just no real way to tell or create a story or just harp on this certain theme without getting repetitive or redundant and in a 20 track or more album. It's just not gonna work unless it's like your greatest hits or something. Like, there's no reason an album should have 25 tracks on it. You're not gonna tell me you're going up and going back to an album every week for a 25 track album. Part of the reason I didn't listen to Chris Brown's that one album that he had a couple years ago that had 40 tracks on it is because there's 40 tracks. Now you tell me, have you gone back to that album since this came out? Can you name me 20 songs? I bet you if you listen to that whole album, there's probably 10, if not 20 songs you could have done without or you don't care about, which means the album could have probably been around 15 or less, to be honest. But yeah, there's no way you're gonna tell any type of engaging story or hit on have a good vibe to an album with replay value if there's over 20 something songs. You cannot tell me that that's a thing. They're probably like exceptions here or there, but even songs that I do enjoy, albums that I do enjoy that have over 20 songs, like let's say Justin Timberlake's The 2020 Experience, I like that album. But one, he broke it up into 2 parts, which helps a little bit. So that, like I said, he broke it into 2 parts. So you don't necessarily have to listen to all of it at one time. You can listen to part 1 and part 2. But like I said, but I don't even go back to that album that much, simply because it's kind of long. And each song is kind of long too, because Timberlake really just showing off on them tracks, to be honest. But you know what I mean? Yeah, so the number of tracks in an album is crucial to me. Like I said, I can be completely turned off by an album just by looking at the track list. I'm like, oh my God, 20 songs? I don't know too much about that. I would really have to like an album in order to listen to over 20 songs. Like, I would really have to like that artist and really just believe in their like abilities. Because like I said, even the best artists make very long albums. And I'm just like, no. And to me, I just feel like it's just a slap in the face to the art form that is the album when you do long albums like that, because I don't feel like I feel like you're just putting in songs just to put in songs. Like, I know there's not necessarily a requirement or a maximum of songs in an album, but I feel like when there are way too many songs in an album, it just feels like you're just like, I am this artist and I can just put whatever music out there and my fans are just going to mess with it regardless, without really taking the time to carefully plan and weed out some songs. Trim the fat, if you will. I always say that when I'm like talking about albums, is just trimming the fat. Sometimes we gotta get some stuff out of here because it's fluff, it's extra. It's just not necessary. I think it's better when you sit there and you plan, you're like, okay, this songs or we're gonna put on there, and if you really like some of the other songs, put it on the deluxe or something, or just release them as just singles. Like I said, Drake loves to do that. He loves to put out one or two songs, every now and again between every era. And I think that's really great. Even that's why people enjoyed Care Package so much, because he doesn't even put those songs on his album. He just has them as freebies. And I think that's really great. Like I said, just because it's maybe a good album or it's decent doesn't mean you need 30 songs to tell the same story. It's just going to get repetitive. It's going to get boring and you're not going to go back to it. Okay, so those are kind of like all the main ones, but I have a bonus one that I feel like is also important and worth mentioning here. And basically, the bonus part that I think that makes an album a 10 out of 10, would recommend, an album that I enjoy, a classic, whatever, is just the ability for the artist to invoke passion, or give me some type of feeling, or the relatability to an album. Because I think this is important, and sometimes I don't put it in like the general criteria just because it really just depends on the type of singer and the type of music they make. I feel like sometimes you just don't got that type of voice that's gonna make me feel anything. That doesn't mean I don't necessarily like you or vibe with your music, but I think the artists and the albums that hit home for me are the ones in which there's passion behind it. The songs are passionate. The songs make me feel like a way. Even if I'm not even going through what's happening in the album, I can literally just listen to it and feel something. Like when I listen to, let's say, Chasing Summer, and I listen to John Redcorn, for instance, I'm not a side piece in a situation, but I can still resonate it with and feel Sir's pain when he's singing. And I feel like that's part of the reason why it was on my Spotify Rap Top 3. Because I just enjoy that song, in general, the overall album. Because like I said, he's feeling pain and I'm feeling pain right there with him. I can empathize and I can understand the pain that's going through with it. But also, like I said, I love albums where I can definitely listen to the album and resonate with it right away. Like I can listen to it, I hear a song, and I'm like, oh my God, this is me, okay? An example is like when the first time I heard Control and I heard Supermodel, I'm quite sure Supermodel is the very first song on the album. And when she says, wish I can stay alone just by myself, which I was comfortable with just with myself, I said, why do I feel triggered? Because there are many moments that I have felt like that and had that same thought processes. And throughout the album, just the thought of just having control or losing control, especially when you're in romantic relationships, I can definitely understand that because I've definitely been there. Now, once again, I ain't been nobody's side piece, hanging out with nobody on the weekend and talking about you the 9 to 5 and I'm the weekend. That has never been me. But I can still vibe with majority of the other album. And like I said, the reason why I go back to it so much and why I enjoy it is just because it's relatable and I can definitely get jiggy with that, okay? Also, there could just be the feelings of nostalgia. I can listen to an album, remember the time, the place, whatever, when I was like listening to it, whether that be on the radio or whatever. Like for instance, the Cheetah Girls soundtrack, the first one, that is a 10 out of 10 album. It's a classic album, okay? I enjoy that album. And from time to time, even as an adult, I will go back to it and indulge, okay? I remember when my mother got that for me in the first grade, and I was sitting there listening to it, blasting it, even the songs that weren't on the album, okay? Just songs that are just not on the album, but weren't in the actual movie. Just songs that like were made for the soundtrack, like that Girlfriend song. If you know, you know, okay? But yeah, or sometimes I can, or is it other like albums that make me feel nostalgic is Stevie Wonder's Hotter Than July or Crazy Sexy Cool. Like these are albums that I can just remember, being young, or like for especially like Stevie Wonder, there's songs that my dad played, on the, during Saturday when we cleaning up in the house. And Crazy Sexy Cool, No Scrubs, all them songs creep. Those are songs I used to hear and watch on like TRL or 106 in Park. Like those are albums I could just go back to and remember like how old I was when I listened to it and hearing it. And it takes me back. And some albums I love it just because it just slaps. Like sometimes it may not have, a lot of the other criteria, but just because there's nothing but hits on there, I just gotta rock with it, okay? Like Confessions, once again, Confessions definitely fits almost every criteria that I just mentioned, but I love that album because there's just nothing but hits on there. Come on, like Burn, Caught Up, Yeah, My Boo, Confessions Part 2, even though Confessions Part 1 is my favorite, but Part 2 was the actual like main, like, like the single. But yeah, I'm going back to it because it reminds me, number one, of like me being young and listening to this album and enjoying it. But also there's nothing but hits on there. Even the B-sides hit. But yeah, so those are just some things that I feel like they're important. But also, it's just sometimes I may listen to an album the first time and I may not mess with it the first time because I just don't resonate with what's going on. But sometimes I can go through something and then I pick up this album again. I'm like, wow, I really messed with this album. Like, I'm going through what's going on in this album. Like I said, a lot of the albums I heard as a kid, I didn't understand them, so I really didn't go up for them as a kid. Like when I heard the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill as a kid, while I liked the singles and things, I wasn't like listening to this album intently and like deeply resonating with it because I was like, a little kid listening to it. But now as an adult, when I go back and I'm like, oh my God, like X Factor, yes. But you know what I mean? Like Lost Ones, like I used to love him. Like those are songs I can really go back and be like, wow, like I've been there, like I understand it because now I got the life experience attached that I can now empathize and understand with the, what Lauren is singing and saying. Okay? But yeah, so those are just my overall criteria, my insights on what makes an album a 10 out of 10. Like I said, music is subjective, and so there are some of y'all, if you like country music, rock music, you're gonna be like, some of the albums I named, you're like, wait, I don't get it. Or like I said, it just depends on the type of music you like and what are you particularly looking for in an album. Sometimes people just listen and like, if I like it, if I like the beat, I'm a rock with the album. If most of the beats that are on there, I like it. Like I said, if you're listening to rap, you're looking for like, bars and features and whatever. You're like messing with whatever the rapper is saying. It really just depends on person to person, but these are just some common things that I have seen in big, like, critically acclaimed albums that are commercially successful, and so on and so forth. Like I said, sometimes artists or albums that are big mainstream hits had none of these things, right? They're just decent albums. Like I said, personally, they probably won't be a 10 out of 10 for me, but they may not. I don't know. There's some exceptions. We can't make exceptions here, okay? But those are my thoughts, my opinions, whatever, on what makes an album a 10 out of 10, would recommend, would tell a friend, okay? But yeah, like, what makes a 10 out of 10 album for you? What do you look for? What do you like? Give me some examples of some 10 out of 10 albums that I didn't mention. Put me on. I love to get put on to some good music, especially if it's R&B child, okay? But yeah, like, let me know what you guys think. And thank you guys for watching. And I will definitely see y'all in my next video. Peace out.